Thank you. Kia ora koutou, ko Joe Randerson, toko ingoa. I'm very happy to be here in Christchurch. Quick fire, here we go. So I'm from Barbarian Productions. We called our company Barbarian because we wanted to maintain a sense of counterculturalness, of challenging the norm. So when we're talking about economic rationalisation this morning, I'm like, we don't want to occupy that territory. A motto that's important for us is use what you have, which sometimes challenges us to really get to the edge of our abilities and sometimes sort of curbs our ambitions to work within our resources. So it goes both ways. We make work that comes out of a societal context. So, for example, Anya Tate Manning had 100 unused bridal dresses that had come into her possession. The Marriage Equality Act was getting voted on. There was a spare retail space down in Lambton Quay, and we thought, let's make this project Brides, where we just invite people to wear dresses and talk about what marriage could be. So over the last 5 years, we've been really going, like, who's our audience? What happens when we sit in a theatre and when we sit and watch other people play? What is that? What is the heart of that transaction and that exchange? For us, we're always looking for ways that we can actually be in closer contact with our audience. So can we think of them more as like fellow players? How could we get as close as possible to actually making a show together? So
can we begin to think of ourselves rather than stages of plays as orchestrators of social interactions? Not the individual genius creator of a commodified product, but as a facilitator of social change.
Awesome, Elise, thanks. So how can we change up this relationship? Okay, so the context for this show grand opening. Me and my husband Thomas went to a show at a theatre, big theatre, and we found our interchange with the ushers before we got into the theatre and during the show more entertaining than we found the show on the stage. To be brutally honest. So we thought this was one part of the context. This was buzzing around with us. Then we've also built up lots of different community connections because of the different work that we do working in schools. Thomas works as a clown doctor at Wellington Hospital. This is not Thomas, this is Ian Harcourt. We have a beautiful professional hairdresser who's very theatrical and we do several collaborations with. We'd done a big Weta party and the theme was Russia, and so we met this beautiful Russian theatre troupe, sort of folk music troupe, and all of these things were floating around, and then the Cuba Duper Festival said, do you want to do something for the festival? Maybe you could have the Opera House. And we were like, that's it. We thought about this beautiful 100-year-old venue, which has such an amazing theatre history and is mostly used for very large-scale professional music productions. And we wondered if there was a way we could try to invert this experience somehow. We thought about the way the building was structured. There's all these little small rooms around the back and the sides. Is there a way we could populate these with some of the different players that we had met, bringing them into contact with each other, and then take the audience on this sort of backstage experience through the space? So this was grand opening. They gave us the keys to the Opera House. We had to do lots of health and safety plans, which was awesome. But we made a really subversive, interesting piece in that everyone was proud of. And so I just want to play you a little clip.
Did you just go straight in and see the show?
Yeah.
No, I got very lost.
We missed the show.
Yeah. What we wanted to do with this project was to really give people the reverse experience. Maybe they think they're going to come and sit down and see a show, but then quite swiftly the ushers can't get into the auditorium, so they have to take you around a back way, and you have to find a different way into the building. The entrance is really nicely done up, but the back edges of the building are really rough and really raw and really real, and then they get led through the building, through the dressing rooms. Some rooms give people quite a surprise, I think. It's certainly not what you're expecting to have in there.
Because if they see you as people, they'll be worried. If they just see Reynolds, it'll be fine. So first get the teeth.
this.
So I think people are sort of piecing together all the parts that make up to the performance, and then of course they end up on the stage themselves being the performers, and mostly people seem to be having a really great time with that. One person said, oh, it's my worst nightmare, but then she put on a massive mask and did a huge thing in the middle of the stage anyway. Usually the stage is full of life and all of the other places are the off spaces, but in this experience the stage was the off space for most of the time, and you could hear all through the building drumming and song coming up and the Russian singers, and just sort of feeling all the life coming in from all of the edges. We keep peering down into Male Vocale, into the choir downstairs, and seeing people dancing and joining in. What is the heart of our performance landscape in a city? Like, it's not just the sort of big professional pieces that are on the main stage that might come in and out of town from other places, but actually it's all the community groups and the people who are singing at school and the activists and all the different kinds of performance that happen in our city, and we really wanted to highlight those and focus on those because we're interested in not just being performers who are on stage for people to watch, but being able to invite people into experiences to help to release their more creative selves. Thank you. Thanks. I've just got a few more points to make. Helen asked me to try to have 3 key takeaways. I find distilling things really hard. But we felt very proud that we had managed to transform the audience's relationship, that they came in wanting to sit down and see a show and thinking that's what the transaction was going to be. And then by the end, by being warmed up, by going through all these different parts of the process, they finally got to the point where they were on stage and they were comfortable. I mean, to varying degrees, you know, like not everyone wants to lie down with a guitar, but some people just even put on a hat and stood there, and that was enough for them, and that's awesome. And we played a huge bit of applause, and everyone got to do a bow. So it's about like different levels of engagement that don't make people uncomfortable. We've learnt that it's not about starting with your A team and going like, hey, we've got this creative dream team, this show is going to be amazing. It's more for us like we start with this sort of idea and we're like, who wants to join us? And the idea changes. It might not be a very good idea at the start, but with collaboration and other people getting involved, the thing can become more than what it is. And we find that the principles of large-scale collaboration, like between venues and groups, are the same as small-scale collaboration that we use in the room. It's about listening. It's about sometimes making a stupid offer and then realising that was wrong. Sometimes saying to people, hey, here's a doorway. Do you think you could use that? And then being like, no, I've got a cape and I've got a 10-minute song. Be like, okay, we'll put you somewhere else then. So in terms of feedback, we did Vox Pops, were really successful for us. We also just had a little black book and people wrote notes in. And this was a really good way to get feedback. One of my favourite feedbacks was this: a triumph of contemporary dance. We got feedback that we had quite a different times. We had matinees and we had an evening performance on Saturday, and we really strive for times that are going to suit different groups from the community. It was entry by donation, and we got a real range of donations that people gave, and sometimes nothing, which was also fine. We did hardly any marketing. It was just a pop-up factor, and the word of mouth went crazy. So I guess some of the takeaways are that you need different structures around these kind of processes. Usually you would rehearse for a long time with the core performers and then the production team would go crazy at the end. This was the reverse. Stage management was nuts from day one. It was all about organising and all these schedules and plans, and rather that performers got to come in right at the end of the process into a really warmed up, logistically organised situation. Budgets are different too when you're working with lots of voluntary performers, and it's really important to make sure you're not exploiting anyone. Sometimes people want to pay you to be in the show, but just being really clear about what the arrangement is and making sure that people are looked after. With food, that is a huge part of our budgets, and just making sure people are okay. People have different needs, and we have to respect that. People work differently, and sometimes people just pull out at the last minute, and that is fine. This is lovely Manu, who didn't pull out, but several of his other mates did, and we managed to construct a beautiful context for him. I think also this thing of blurring boundaries and active co-creation, that it starts early. You know, you don't finalise the idea and then to come to a group and say, do you want to do that? You start having the conversation early and let the thing evolve. So Rose Kirkup at the back of this shot here was our designer, but she also had access to a beautiful group of performers with her company, Everybody Cool Lives Here. So you might have seen her in the video. She also performed with them. She designed it and performed. So it's keep being like, you don't just have to get stuck in one role. And my final point is that we have discovered how important it is to start with a really strong, energetic invitation, you know? When you're co-working with other people, it's not about starting neutrally and being, hey, what would everyone else like to do? It's often about coming out with something really big and bold and ambitious, which may be wrong. But at least it's a starter of the conversation. So I think it's this nice thing of hosting and being brave and energetic and creative with the way that you welcome people into something. So that's everything I have to say. We've got more info about the show on our website, and very happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi guys, Linda from DANZ. Excuse me while I move this down. It's a problem I usually have. People can hear me, but they can't usually see me. Okay, so yeah, really thrilled to be in Christchurch. Thank you, Creative New Zealand, for bringing all these wonderful, wonderful people together. Really excited to learn from every one of you, and stoked to have the opportunity to share some of the things that we have learned on this journey of going digital, and really appreciate Creative New Zealand's support for giving us that little push to actually go digital. So yeah, Linda from DANZ, and I guess drawing inspiration from Diane's keynote speak this morning and her comment about transformation, and I found that really, really inspiring. And over lunch I sort of thought, well, what is it that we want to transform at DANZ? And I figured that what we actually want to do is we want to change dance in New Zealand so it becomes an everyday part of life. So we all need to have a vision to that end, and our vision is simple. We want digital tools to be an integral part of our processes at DANZ to create vibrant and thriving dance in Aotearoa New Zealand. So our digital strategy, quite simple, but just founded on achieving effective interaction between DANZ and our stakeholders. And the end result of that is to increase the visibility of DANZ and dance in Aotearoa. So out of that, we came up with some digital initiatives, and these are all about bringing people together, to coin a phrase from Diane again this morning, bringing people together across divides on equal terms. I thought that was, yeah, really amazing, really sort of struck a chord. So these digital initiatives provide a platform to share insights, draw audiences into the experience, and inspire them to join in, to create communities, to reach different audiences, geographically, culturally, and digitally. So that whole concept of place and convenience. If you're in that digital world, you're not set in one place, you're not restricted, you know, being stuck in Wellington. It's enabled us to really reach out and engage with other people. So our first one, the Dance Magazine Online. This is all about telling the stories of dance and putting it online in that digital world gave us the opportunity to do it nationally and internationally. Used to be just sort of, we still do a hard copy of it, and I've got copies downstairs, which you guys are welcome to take away with you on your way out. But that's been really great for us. We've had really great views on that, and we're really interested to sort of see that grow. Web articles, these give us the ability to promote the amazing work of the sector widely across our communications channels, and we've used our Facebook page and our e-newsletter to link to those. Our For the Love of Dance in Aotearoa video project not only celebrated the diversity of dance, but gave us the opportunity to engage and work with the dance community for the first time on a truly national basis. And we got to work with groups that we hadn't ever engaged with, and in regions that normally would be very hard for us to reach. So we had about 3 groups in Dunedin, 1 in Christchurch, we even had a studio in New Plymouth, a group in Hamilton. So that was amazing for us. It's always been a challenge, regional reach, but through that project we were able to achieve that. Our Did You Know video profiles aim to break down the fourth wall and make dance an everyday part of life. And so this, of course, is a very important strategy for dance to reach new audiences. Having attended Vicky's session this morning about being normal, I realised we need to make these shorter, so like maybe 2 minutes, maybe even shorter. But really this is about breaking down the barriers of elitism, making arts a part of everyday life, and actually showing artists and dancers as real people and getting connections through that. New Zealand Dance Week 2016, we created this. It was the very first National Dance Week to celebrate and elevate dance in New Zealand. And this was about inviting the community in to work with us. And it also provided us a platform for our digital initiatives so that we could integrate them into our work plan. It created an opportunity for the community to engage with dance and with this event in whatever way they wish to, simply by using the hashtag New Zealand Dance Week 2016. So some of the things that we did around that, and I think the thing is, these digital initiatives are great, but it's really about putting them into a context. So we entered into a partnership with the Capizio Kiwi Classic to launch New Zealand Dance Week. And this really showed us the power of strength and collaboration to build vibrant organisations and communities. So we had all these ballroom people at the Langham Hotel. There were 450 entries, as well as people who came to view them, and they were all hashtagging. Every time there was a photo or video, they were hashtagging New Zealand Dance Week 2016. So that was really cool, and we hardly had to do anything, so that was fantastic. Sweet Mother's World, this was our closing event. The objective of this was to take dance to audiences, and with the help of the fabulous Le Grand Petit dancers, we drew them into the experience. But for me, what was really amazing about this event wasn't just the people who actually got up and danced, but I was just looking around the sides, and there were all these spectators who were a bit shy to actually get up there and dance, but you could just sort of see them, you know, grooving off the side and just sort of soaking it up, and I thought that was really cool. The Dance in Auckland Art Gallery program brought professional dancers and companies to the wider community. This is a picture of Touch Compass, amazing work. And really, as evidenced by the 75 plus public that viewed the rehearsal alone, that's not the people that actually saw the actual work, that was just for the rehearsal. This was a great way to reach new audiences. Our 30-second dance challenge inspired audiences to join in. And so, yeah, this was a video that got posted up on our Facebook page by Carla, who did a tap dance in Queenstown. So that was really cool to see. Okay, so the stats and the metrics. I hope Vicky's paying attention here. But yeah, we saw some amazing growth with some of our metrics. And yeah, I was pretty excited about looking at some of these, but then after this morning I realised that there's so much more that we could do. So yeah, really excited to build on that. But I mean, like, I guess our greatest increase was really in Facebook. In April 2015, we had 23 new likes, but in April 2016, 101, which is a growth of 340%. So, yeah, challenges to keep that up. But across all those indicators, 116% across our digital channels. So, but yeah, as I said, based on this morning, some work to do. Yeah, just wanted to touch on them. Those are the things that we did, but I think it's also really important to know what not to do. So with the blog and Instagram, although that was included in our strategy, at this point, we haven't implemented those. One, because we don't have the staff resources, but it's also the know-how and the common thread that's coming through from Lisa's talk. Having the language and being able to, connect using those channels. So we haven't implemented those yet, but with a 261% growth in Instagram, I think the time has come for us to seriously look at that. So, yeah, I have to talk to you about that, Anton. Maybe that's something you could do. Get yourself a smartphone. Okay, so on an ongoing basis, digital platforms, we firmly believe they are the way forward for dance, for us to reach new audiences, because it provides us with the potential for a massive regional reach, but at the same time achieving deep and meaningful engagements and connections with the community. And this is really, really important for small organisations with limited resources, which, that's the arts, isn't it? So, yeah. So what next? Well, we just released our second Did You Know video profile last month with Frances Turner, the new Executive Director of the ballet. To continue the momentum of our For the Love of Dance and Aotearoa project, we are wanting to produce For the Love of Ballet to coincide with World Ballet Day. And yeah, hot on the heels of the spectacular success of New Zealand Dance Week, we'll be looking to do that. And love to connect with, each and every one of you to challenge you guys to think of something to do towards that. I guess the thing, though, is with digital and with these channels, they are amazing, we totally believe in them, but what's really exciting for us is the review of our website and also a redevelopment of our contact database. And those are going to be huge step forwards for us to actually work digitally, because all these other initiatives, they're just sort of like platforms and tools, but it's actually going digital. It's a way of working, it's a way of being, it's everything that you do, the way you think. So really excited for those. So three messages. I've only got two there, but I've got a third one up my sleeve. Digital platforms are a help, not a hindrance. So yeah, we're really scared about it, but we've actually we're a believer. Just do it, but I guess, temper it with, knowing what not to do. And make it an integral part of what you do and how you work. And I guess this time next year, love to come back and maybe let you guys know how we've done. But I think the ultimate for me would be for us to get up here and say, well, we actually no longer have a digital vision, because digital for us is actually just part and parcel of what we do towards achieving our vision, which is vibrant and thriving dance in Aotearoa. So on that note, I'd just really like to thank CNZ again for their support in helping us to go digital. We've got a really long way to go with it, and we're by no means the expert in this, but I'd hope that some of you guys have got something from what I've said. And I just want to finish off by showing you our digital project, which we got match funding from for CNZ, which we did as part of our strategy. It's our For the Love of Dance in Aotearoa video. So thank you for listening, enjoy the video, and love to have a chance to chat with you all later on. Thank you.
Kia ora everybody, I'm Margaret-Mary Hollins, the Artistic Director of TAPAC, the Auckland Performing Arts Centre, and just want to say thank you to Creative New Zealand for this fantastic opportunity to be amongst you all in beautiful Christchurch and to share some of the insights that I've experienced over the last 6 years working at this fantastic venue. So TAPAC is a venue with a passion and a drive to enable and to allow artists to create and for the community to be involved personally in the performing arts. And today I'm going to focus on just a couple of the relationships that we've established at TAPAC between community groups and the professional sector and how we need each other to develop in order for us to be a sustainable arts organisation. So just a bit of background, TAPAC was fundraised, it was fundraised by the community and by the professional sector. We don't receive any ongoing funding for operational costs. We've got 4 fantastic studios and a beautiful, fully flexible, very intimate black box theatre. Our main stakeholder is Western Springs College, so we're on ministry land, and it's a fantastic relationship. Their drama and dance students use our studios through the week, 3 of those 4 studios, and then they get 11 weeks full-time in the theatre, which is just fantastic for what they're doing. And then we often collaborate on things together. Well, we try to as much as we can. And the rest of the time it's for us, it's for the performing arts, it's for the community, for emerging and professional artists. Early on it was primarily used by dancers, the dance community, and over time Auckland's population has culturally diversified extensively really. The centre has developed as a hub of activity for theatre, dance, live music, festival events, educational program. And then we've also got some of our programs that we're satelliting out as well, masterclasses, workshops, rehearsal space, and a place for artists to come together. TAPAC is governed by a board of directors, and over the last 2 years we've had to undertake a full restructure to cope, a staff restructure to cope with the ongoing demand of the building and the activity that's been going on in there. We have 3 core strands: education, community, and performance. We're passionate about working with Auckland's diverse community, delivering quality programs while we're striving for sustainability. Something we think about a lot these days, sustainability. We're passionate about providing the professional sector with ongoing, well-paid work. These are directors, choreographers, designers, teaching artists. We've got over 38 industry professionals working for us. We developed a strict policy a couple of years ago for our programs that only professional industry practitioners were allowed to teach on our programs, so the quality of the teaching is very high and the income stream for the artists is provided for. So also we run over 52 plus classes a week as well as holiday programs, so there's quite a lot of administration happening there. It's about 20,000 students a year. Our performing arts program caters to all ages, from age of 3 up to 93. In fact, you might be 94 now. We work with dance, obviously. All our floors in our studios are sprung, and the theatre as well. Circus, that just gives you a peek into our studios, how fantastic they are. Acting classes, and we have a very strong youth arts program in dance and theatre. And we're starting to run more educational programs that we're taking out, as I said before, into the community. And we're also developing a literacy program as well. And we're focusing on performance here. We're with Tongaroa College, who are based in South Auckland, and we've teamed up with Vodafone Event Centre, and we take a myth, we develop it into the play, and the students from Tongaroa College present the Pacific Island myth to the students, the low decile schools, primary schools, and it's a fantastic experience for them. And we're doing it again this year, and we've extended our little season. It's very, very popular. So we run annual programs, high calibre artists teaching teachers all over the country. We work with Te Wangana o Aotearoa 3 days a week in our studios. They're right next to my office. It's just, I would much rather sometimes be in there than writing a funding application. They're doing some fantastic things. Like all of you, we believe that everyone at some stage in their lives should get involved in the performing arts, be it whatever, design, performance, props, costume. We've seen it just enriches lives and it makes people live longer. TAPAC is a purpose-built performing arts facility with an infrastructure. We have a space and we have a responsibility to support the professional sector as they strive to make New Zealand works that we can all be proud of. But it's not straightforward. We have to pay for the space and it's expensive to run. The bills are high. So we work with artists to make things happen. As with Okareka Dance Company, we've got a strong relationship with them. And we were able to help them develop so that they could use to create Manawahine, a beautiful, bold work. They could use the theatre for 3 weeks full time. So they had lighting, projection, sound. The dancers had the comfort of dressing rooms, the green room, and free car parking. Yes, we all need that. And we raised funding for Okareka to share, so that they could come into the space. And what we wanted from them was to share their knowledge so that the students could warm up with them. The students could talk to them as they were creating this work. It was a beautiful synergy. So we all know that the performing arts is one of the riskiest businesses out there, and the artists are the ones that put their lives on the line, and through their determination to create. Their art comes first, not their paycheck. But we also work with a lot of other groups, and weekly paychecks are important for most people and for our community groups who love the performing arts and who do not want to put their lives on the line. For they need their weekly paycheck, especially if you're a new migrant in New Zealand. And they can get involved. When they come to TAPAC, they can get involved in the arts on a part-time basis in a very rich way. They can have their cake and they can eat it. And it might not be a deluxe chocolate Black Forest cake, but they can get involved quite heavily, as prayers who we're very close to have been doing so over the last few years. And something that I've noticed in working with these active, energetic community groups is because they come from the business world, they have this wonderful understanding of finance and that things cost money. Artists kind of struggle with that a little bit sometimes. They work together to fundraise and apply for funding for projects, and they go to great lengths to reach their audiences, and they really do. They appreciate any support that we can offer, and they never want anything for free. They will always say, no, we want to volunteer. So we've got this great pool of volunteers at TAPAC. With Prayers Indian Theatre Company, they started off creating work in Auckland from a rudimentary community hall, but it wasn't kitted out for live performance. But they're storytellers, and they wanted to perform their stories. They're determined to, and they've got an audience who are hungry for it. Their first show that they performed at TAPAC 6 years ago sold out 2 weeks prior to opening. It was evident from the first season that there was a lot of raw talent amongst these engineers, these dentists, these surgeons, these office workers, these cleaners, but they had little performance technique, and this is where we really started working together. We sought funding to engage professional choreographers, dancers, directors to work with them, and as the talent was already there, it didn't take long before they were invited by the Aotea Centre to perform the highly acclaimed production of Rudali the Mourner at the Herald Theatre, something we were really proud of. This vital connection between the professional sector and community groups feeds us all. Artists get paid, and they also get the opportunity to hone their craft and take it a bit further, because it takes a special kind of skill to communicate arts craft to non-professionals. And they might not want to put their lives on the line for their love of the arts, but they do want to develop in their craft. And they do want to enjoy the satisfaction of getting better, and they do. And they do want to grow their audiences along the way, and they have. So the relationship between community and professional develops a pathway also for professionals and emerging artists. For example, the assistant director on Rudali the Mourner was the following year the co-director on Charanda's Chore, and he was then the following year the main director on A Fine Balance. And then just after that project, he was selected by Auckland Theatre Company to be on the director internship program just recently, and he is now mentoring the young director who's directing the next production at TAPAC with Praise Indian Theatre Company called Love and Stuff. It's on at the end of the month. Come and look at it. It's going to be really funny. So it's just all these benefits just keep flowing, and they just don't seem to stop. Marvellous is another group that we work with. They're a senior theatre group who originated from Auckland Theatre Company and have been working from TAPAC for the last 3 years. And we literally watch these senior citizens grow younger as they engage through, with performance. Their youthfulness is infectious. They meet regularly, they rehearse, and then they go on to win prizes, as you can see. They've won 2 years in a row for the Short and Sweet Theatre. And it's just incredible watching how much they bring to the space through their love of the performing arts, and how it kind of brings them together as a group in our society. And I have a list of high calibre teaching artists who want to work with Marvellous. And also some of the Marvellous were performers in their earlier years and then stopped performing along the way. And so now we've put them back on the stage with our professional and emerging artist you see here. It's a fantastic singer, Aura, and she's in our 2 years in a row, she's been in our Pride season of Night of the Queer. It's a fantastic cabaret co-created by TAPAC and Okareka Dance Company. And this also extends further with our Friday Club, which is 10 to 14-year-olds. We noticed there was a real gap in that market. We wanted to just create a drop-in class, and so this was a very popular class, but the 13 to 14-year-olds we could see needed something a little bit more enriching. So we invited Marvellous to come along every second Friday, and they work with Friday Club, and we're looking at storytelling at the moment, and it really is it's a beautiful meeting of this intergenerational program. It's hilarious too, and it's very moving. So back in 2010, I was the only full-time staff member at TAPAC. We had a part-time receptionist and a technician at 15 hours a week. And over the years, we've been focusing on people. We've been focusing on relationships. We've been focusing on, just as they walk in the building, just what do you want to do? And it's just talking. It's just talking in the foyer. And there wasn't, part of me is ashamed to say there wasn't a strategic plan, but there wasn't. It was just literally organic. The whole thing is just people coming into a space. And from there, we've really had to develop our team. Otherwise, we'll all die of working for very long hours. So thank goodness we've recently undergone a restructure for the first time ever. We're going to have an operations manager. Fantastic. Part-time, Osha's coming in, and that terrifies me. Well, it isn't. And then for the first time ever, we're going to have a communications person who is on 20 hours a week at the moment, and that's just amazing because we've got some really great things happening in this wonderful facility, and we have not had the capacity to tell our story. So, my 3 things are communication, 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 with people that are walking in the door, people who are talking to each other, and then how do we spread those stories? So we're excited about communicating better and looking to develop and grow our audiences along the way. Thank you for listening.
Right, hi everyone. I'm Zoe Williams. I am the Marketing Director and Producer for Atamira Dance Company. Today I'm going to be talking about the recent marketing campaign which supported Atamira's last full-length work, which was called Miti Miti. How we dumped the traditional marketing spend to invest in a creative webisode project, and how the artist-led #social media campaign and other initiatives help to build a community between the audience, the art, the place, Miti Miti, and the artist. A community grew around this project. The project took so much and it gave back so much, not merely a performance or even a piece of art. As the chalk was drawn on the floor and dancers sat side by side the audience in a meeting house style performance space, We all contributed. Packed to the walls with the set hanging above and children playing in front, we all participated. We drew something with the chalk, or we hung near the walls, but we were there. Inside this theatre space, something changed, something took place. We danced. We danced with Jack Gray, danced to fill the space. We danced the place, we danced Miti Miti. We mihied from Portakey to Woodhill, Pennsylvania to Hokianga. We followed. From Argentina, Turtle Island and the middle of the Indian Ocean, we hashtagged Miti Miti. And all around Australia, we found some paper, we drew a heart, we coloured in, and we joined hashtag Miti Miti because we were all a part of Jack Gray's journey, part of the Miti Miti community. Miti Miti premiered in 2015 at Q Theatre with record ticket sales for an Atamira premiere season. I missed a slide there. Jack Gray, Atamira Dance Company founding member, dancer, choreographer, academic, transformer, and social media magnate, built and continues to build a community around Miti Miti. This began with Jack and the company going to Miti Miti to participate in the community-led Marae DIY project. This practical act led to a very real connection with the people of Miti Miti, who ultimately brought the whole town to Auckland Q Theatre to support the show. This pic was taken at the beginning of 2015, where the creative and production team participated in an activation. This took place on the peak of Auckland's largest volcano, Mangawhau, or Mount Eden. This activation is just another example of the many rituals surrounding this project that gathered energy and created community. These pics were taken on the opening night of Miti Miti. Jack had ordered this Instagram frame online, independent from anything I was doing, from an American company, and it was delivered just in time for opening night. This was all a part of Jack's choreography to create community. Jack said, "This dance is intentionally made for global audiences, opening spaces for ritualistic gathering and wānanga and creating opportunities for connection through online and live participation." Jack's hashtag Miti Miti was a part of this. Basically, hashtag Miti Miti was a call to take a photo of yourself and hashtag where you are, whether that be Christchurch or all those places in the previous slides, hashtag that place and post it onto the Atamira Facebook page. So here's a short video of Jack. He just filmed this week. He's in Guam at the moment, so this is just him reflecting on that campaign.
Happy day, everybody. Welcome to Guahan. This is Jack Gray here, wearing my Miti Miti t-shirt and sharing some thoughts I had about last year's hashtag Miti Miti campaign. I'm sitting at the bus stop right now. People really want to make a connection in our everyday life, and I use the social media quite a lot as a way to share stories. I'm quite often traveling, I'm quite often in different parts of the world and understanding different people's relationship to their land, relationship to their culture, and relationship to globality. The basic thing is that I asked if people would be able to send a message of connection and solidarity to Miti Miti, and they did. No matter where you are, you still have connections to all places, and I think it really deeply relates and responds to the idea of whakapapa. It galvanised and catalysed people's true sense of what is home.
So how do you support an artist with this kind of vision? To me, it inspired and kicked off a different marketing approach. So yes, we have an audience development strategy, we have marketing plans, digital strategy, a strategic plan, Excel sheets and statistics. We have the luxury of all these things as well as a recognisable brand. But, what does this mean? Is it interesting? does any of this help our audience necessarily feel connected to the artist or the project at the time? So, thinking of different ways to communicate this project, I felt, wouldn't it be great if we could bring people along on this journey? Perhaps a documentary, what about a webisode series? Oh, we don't have the budget. Well, maybe if we forget about advertising, maybe we can have the budget. And so the idea to create a webisode series that could visually tell the story of this creative process was hatched. This was exciting and fun. It got my creative juices flowing as I thought of ways to further tell the story of the project, to bring people closer to the artist and the company. And so Jack, myself and Matt Galanders, who's the videographer, we began to produce this combination of creative project and marketing tool alongside the actual show. And Jack was involved in this process throughout. Talking about.
I would say I was very involved in the webisode making. I found it another way of presenting and telling my story from an intellectual and creative point of view. Over the last 15 years of my involvement with Atamira, I would definitely say it's the human aspects and the family, the whanaungatanga. It's the way we interact as a special group of people, as dancers, as Māori, as non-Māori, as New Zealanders, kind of working together to find something sacred and to find something that has meaning to us. Webisodes were another way to capture the excitement of the creation and to anticipate, in collaboration with Zoe, sort of what is the trajectory of a creative process and what are all the things that go into making big productions. They really were like, oh, Miti Miti is such a special place to us. So we watched it, and to see that this dance was happening there was something very unique for a lot of people. So yeah, so that they engaged and came on board with feeling proud of what that outcome was.
So my vision with the webisodes was to continue to tell the story, but more in a conceptual and visual style. So, what does it look and feel like in the studio? What is the atmosphere? What is the temperature? What are we feeling? This was really exciting rather than a whole lot of talking to just kind of... Anyway, this next video is one of the webisodes. It's the last one. This was my favourite and was released just before opening night.
Why are we trying to share history, genealogy, our own personal stories?
As urban-born Māori, we find ourselves sometimes struggling to connect back home to iwi.
It's underpinned by being your past as well as your future.
We try to embody a sense of having a foot in both worlds.
Every time it's different, and that's what I kind of love about it.
It means old and new, it means hard work, it means no sleep.
A lot of uncertainty, not knowing what to expect, but still willing to go through the struggle of that.
Being able to take a piece of that with me to bring onto stage.
It means culture. It is a place that exists, and a place also that is in imagination, because it has to deal with a mythology.
It's about country, it's about land, it's about lineage. It's like being given a gift.
Just bring your richness and then add it to this moment, and then we just thrive, and that's it.
It means history, past, present and future. It means Māori, it means to be a good way of thinking as well.
It is a performance that is about to happen.
Te rarawa tūkaha. He reo tangi panguru, he reo tangi puhanga tōra e pāpata.
So yeah, it's also a performance that happened. Essentially, this was a somewhat organic campaign, and it was an experiment that wielded results. The artist was an integral part of the campaign, and by co-creating the webisodes and creating and driving the hashtag Miti Miti campaign. I mean, indeed here, Jack Gray is an artist who naturally creates community, and this works for this project. But I think it's really an interesting idea for producing organisations to consider that this sort of artist-led connection with audience can be embraced, and it can work alongside traditional, more brand-led marketing. It was fun too. Yeah. So I just, I guess what I'd like to suggest to people is, you know, sometimes giving the artist some freedom to be creative and have fun around marketing their work, you know. Maybe take a little risk with that. With this being an organic campaign, there were results. We pretty much spent $0 on advertising, on any paid advertising. We created 6 webisodes, which now form a longer documentary that can be used to promote the work or just talk about Miti Miti and Jack's work. There were 125 hashtag Miti Miti entries from 15 different countries. Doesn't sound like a huge amount, but you know, these were voluntary kind of contributions. And there were record ticket sales for the premiere. We sold 50% more tickets than previous premiere in 2014, so I think that's quite a lot. There was an increase in Māori audience as well, increase of 20% from the previous premiere. And, you know, there was a community created around this, so yeah. If you'd like to check out the full webisode series, it's on the YouTube, and if you search in hashtag Miti Miti, you can view some of those images and stuff. Thanks.
Hello everybody, my name's Ryan. I'm with an organisation called Gap Filler that started here in Christchurch after the earthquakes. Basically we're a community building initiative, and our main vessel is creating free public events and civic amenities. And our session is officially over in about 2 minutes. I will try to talk quickly and not breathe any more than I have to. I just wanted to say no disrespect to anyone else but Joe. I really love that production, love that process, love your values. Thank you. So Creative New Zealand approached me to talk about volunteering and how we've used volunteers in our organisation, and that's not really what I wanted to talk about. I feel like we have a little bit to offer in other areas, so I gently pushed back and went with a title called Beyond Volunteering, and thinking more broadly about meaningful engagement. So we had some earthquakes here. You heard from Diane in the keynote, that sort of outpouring of humanity in New York City after 9/11, and you hear stories like that all around the world, and Christchurch was no different. We had our student volunteer army and lots of other initiatives, and there was a real surge in volunteering. And I would say related to that, well, my house fell down and I met my next door neighbors for the very first time. And we shared a meal and took some time to talk to one another. And I'd known their cat, but I never knew them. And we were living next to each other for 3 years. And there's stories like that unfolding all around the city. And So really the hint of an idea of our organization was just, gosh, why does this only happen immediately after disaster? And how long is this going to last? And can we find some way to preserve that sense of generosity, taking time for human interaction? So this was one of my favorite Mexican restaurants south of the border. That building was demolished, and there were lots of sites like this around the city. So privately owned land, behind fences, being used for nothing. And so all we wanted to do was turn these vacant private land into temporary public spaces. So our first project looked like this. We hadn't formed an organization. We had no funding. I think you can see that. We rolled out some AstroTurf, some furniture that we got from the dump, and we painted it up, and we created a temporary public space for a couple weeks. We found a guy who'd just created a coffee caravan in a van there. But this wasn't a cafe. You didn't have to buy something to be there. We encouraged people to bring a picnic or whatever, just a place to hang out. And about a day or two before we opened, we thought, oh, let's have an open mic and have a sort of stage where anyone can come and perform or talk. And over the course of 2 weeks, we had about 30 bands play. We had filmmakers present their films that we projected directly onto the wall next door. We had magicians and puppeteers and poets and circus performers and just all sorts of different things. And similar but different to Atamira, we spent no money on publicity or marketing. It was all word of mouth. And we got pretty good turnout. And that wasn't a surprise to us because we knew there were a lot of people out there who missed south of the border Mexican restaurant and the social gathering spaces like it. What was a surprise to us was how many artists, broadly speaking, wanted to offer their performances, their gifts, their stories, whatever it was, and many of them coming back 2 and 3 and 4 times to perform again and perform again. And in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense because the government came in pretty quickly after the earthquakes and said, we've got the team together that's going to rebuild the city. We've got the architects, the planners, the developers, which was great and reassuring, but it also meant that if you weren't one of those people or you weren't in one of those professions, you felt that you had no way to actually be involved. And so this was our first discovery of actually how we and other creative people, broadly speaking, can be involved. So it was a reasonably successful project. A lot of people started asking us, when are you going to do the next one? Where's the next one going to be? And what they meant by that was, when are you going to roll out the same AstroTurf, just do it a couple blocks up the road? This is a band called The Eastern and Marlon Williams. They played at our first project. If you don't know them, well, you'll certainly know Marlon soon. Anyway, but they went on after this, The Eastern, to launch what they called the Backyard Tour of Christchurch, and I might get the numbers wrong, but let's say they offered to play a concert to anyone, anywhere, for any amount of money or no amount of money. And over a 12-month period, they played something like 245 concerts. They went into office buildings. They played in people's backyards. They did concerts in the park to 30,000 people, doesn't matter. And I don't take credit for that, but in some way that shows that people like the Eastern had found their voice, had found their way to be involved. So there's no need for us to do the same project again. So we made a policy not to repeat ourselves, actually not to get good at any one thing, which is kind of a counterintuitive and not in the interest of efficiency and economics. But anyway, that's the path that we went down. I'm going to jump all over the place. So this is quite a while later. This was the first site where a property owner came to us. This is in Littleton. There's a very strong community in Littleton, and quite a few people had approached this property owner whose building was demolished on the corner of the main street and said, oh, we'd like to use your site for something. She came to us and said, I'm a little bit nervous about liability insurance and things like that. Can you guys do this? And we said, well, okay. So we got an agreement on the site, we got the insurance and all the permits that you need, but like hell, we were going to go into Littleton and just do a project of our own dreaming. So we decided on a new methodology, which we called the No Plan Working Bee. So we did a letterbox drop, and over 2 weekends we said, we're going to have a working bee here. Anyone who turns up gets to have a say in what this site becomes. And we turned up with some materials and some tools, and there were some people from the community there, and we stood around really awkwardly and had no clue what to do with ourselves for about an hour. And then some people got impatient and said, you know what, whatever we do, we're going to need some seating, so I'm going to just break down some pallets and saw them in half and turn them into benches. Anyone that wants to do that comes here. Someone else was a musician. They wanted the concrete pad at the corner of the site there to be a stage. Someone else was a gardener and so on, and this became a pétanque pitch in the main area there. So these were our volunteers on the first day. This was the site when we had the launch. So you can see there's a stage, there's a musician, one of the musicians from our first project. There's a garden, sort of. There's a pétanque pitch, and there's some seating, and that's a wonderful thing. And some pétanque being played there. But then the interesting stuff started happening. So we came back to the site a week or two later, and this stuff's here. And this is stuff that wasn't built at the Working Bees that we organized. This is our project in our name and our legal agreements and stuff. And people were adding these contributions. And we went back again, and people had planted veggies, and there was a herb exchange. And I went back one day, and someone had dug a pit and filled it with sand and left kids' toys there. We went back at one point, and people had built a little village out of clay. And it was operating more as a public space in practice than any public space actually tends to function. You know, you don't go into your neighborhood park and just build a sand pit because you think there ought to be one. And partly that's, that's because there was no master plan, right? There was no plan at all, really, and because of the really raw, rough draft aesthetic. But out of this project, we start saying, so we consider involving people at all stages. Not that every project involves people at every stage, but we at least think through, where's the idea come from? Can the idea be made better? Actually building the thing, implementing it, putting in public space, activation, running additional events there, making sure it's used, maintenance, evolution, critical reflection on the project. Is it working well? What do we need to change? And actually the afterlife. When does the project have an end? If so, what is the end? Can we give it away to someone else? And so on. So these are things we think about at every stage. When can we open them to the public? And what that creates is a dynamic where there's no ownership of ideas. So no matter who originates the idea, we're all just sort of custodians of the principles of that idea. So that so long as whatever additions people were making to the Littleton Pétanque Club weren't kind of going against the grain of what the whole project was about, then hands off from us, right? It's not our project. Jumping all around, so the woman on the right is Coralie Wynn. She was our director on maternity leave now. On the left, that's Sarah Gallagher. She was a librarian at a time when all the Central City libraries were closed, and she wanted to create a project that was serving those communities in need that weren't being served. So together we hatched the idea to do a kind of quirky public book exchange in an old refrigerator that we salvaged, and we put it on a vacant site there with a bench. It's called the Think Differently Book Exchange. There's a little pathway of pavers leading up to it, and we asked people to leave books that had made them think differently in some way and maybe write a little message inside. We had a launch event. We invited some of the poets from our first project to read some poetry and leave their books in the book fridge, so always trying to grow the communities from previous projects, right? And then we left it there, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Initial agreement with the property owner, it would be there for a month. It has been there 5 years. And there have been a few other book exchanges and refrigerators popping up elsewhere around the city and indeed around the country. This was a tweet. So Sarah Gallagher, the librarian that helped us with this project, lives in Dunedin now. She's been living in Dunedin for years. This was 3 years after the project. She sends a tweet saying that her niece is planning a gap filler Christchurch book fridge at her school down south. And that, to me, is a sign that we did some good engagement there, that actually she feels so invested in the project that 3 years on, when she's in another city, she's still talking about it and promoting it more than we do. This is a photo of volunteers building us an office. And that feels a little bit cheeky. And I was looking back at these images going, gosh, we really got volunteers to build an office for us. The guy in the red's from Dunedin, an organization called Sustainable Habitat Challenge. He's into salvaging materials and turning them into something else. Guy on the left is a young designer. He works for WikiHouse. He's into kind of easy construction techniques that idiots can do. The woman in the middle here is an architectural engineer, works for Polytech, and is kind of pioneering earthen building and community building techniques. And this is what it looked like when we were done. And this is our little office. It's 10 square meters. It's sub-consent, so we didn't need any sort of permits from the council. It was off-grid, solar-powered. And it was sitting there on Colombo Street, on the main street in Christchurch. And I was thinking, why did people volunteer to build this office? Well, it's actually because of that publicness, because it's demonstrating, well, our values, our resourcefulness in this case, but it's their values as well. So we're providing an opportunity for them to express values that are really important to them. At some point, we got offered this site, which is where the Crown Plaza Hotel used to be, and it's really intimidating because it was a really big site. And so we felt like we had to do something big. So we wanted to build a venue for community events, for live music. And there was a lot of temporary architecture happening in Christchurch, and it was all happening in shipping containers. It's still all happening in shipping containers. And we wanted to do something a little more interesting, and so we decided to do something with pallets. And the idea was that we would actually just borrow the pallets and give them back at the end. So whatever we did to the pallets to create them into a building couldn't actually ruin the pallets. They would have to go back and be able to be pallets in the shipping industry again. And the other big constraint is that we wanted a collective building process. We wanted people as useless as I am with tools to be able to build the thing. We approached the company Oricon, the engineering firm, so going a bit beyond volunteering, talking about sponsorship or relationships with corporations. So this was day one when we got our first 20 pallets delivered and started exploring how might we stack these things, how might we make a building out of these. The guy on the left is an architect from our organization, the two guys on the right are the engineers from Oricon. So we approached them not with a finished design saying, hey, can you do the PS2 form and sign off for this for us? We approached them at this stage and said, can you help us turn pallets into a building? And so it was a creative process for them, figuring out what can you do to pallets that doesn't compromise their structural integrity? How can you create a sort of an actual building out of that? And this construction system we came up with, so there's concrete slabs that were actually the 9th floor of the Clarendon Hotel that we borrowed. After it was demolished, we put steel bar in just the right spots all around the concrete foundation, and then the whole thing was built just by drilling holes. You drill holes in the pallets, you lift them up, and you thread them over the steel bars. So anyone could be involved building it, and we had about 300 people give about 3,000 hours of their time building it. Oricon, so talking about that, got a lot of mileage out of this. And for them, this was, they were unleashing their creativity. The project was completely unusual, thinking outside the box, right? And I remember meeting with the Christchurch office manager initially, and he was like a broken record saying, how big's the sign going to be? How big's our logo going to be? That's what he was worried about, and fair enough. And talking to him halfway through this process, he said, Ryan, this has transformed our office. Everyone else in the office is doing boring like residential assessments, how much damage is on the house and whatever, and every lunch break, everyone crowds around Luis's desk because he's busy trying to figure out how the hell to build pallets into a consentable building, and it's the most exciting creative task, and it's actually transformed the office. So I think approaching them in the early stages was really, really useful. So that's what it looked like in the end when it was built. The sort of inside view, so the seats, the tables, everything was borrowed and given back, so it's almost zero waste. But not only about how we involved the companies and the corporates, but the fact that 300 people were involved building it meant that from the day that opened, that was an incredibly loved space. And everyone who was involved wanted to have their birthday party there, brought their out-of-town visitors there, and it hosted such a wide range of events and all sorts of things. And someone who'd never run a market before started running a regular market. Someone who'd never run a cafe before started running a regular cafe. A young chef decided to have a big locally grown feast. He ended up opening his own restaurant after that. So it was this wonderful catalyst for all sorts of things that would never have happened here. And that's the real point for me, that the project became just a catalyst, a way that people could see a way that they could make an offering to their city. We even had volunteers help deconstruct it. So the building was there for a year and a half and then got taken down, and all the pallets went back into circulation. So here's the sort of virtuous circle, and there were volunteers. Our community was engaged at every stage of the way, from running events, maintaining it, through to deconstructing. This is a photo from one of our staff meetings. This is our staff member, Richard, in his goofy tie and fake pipe. And so we've implemented a new thing with our staff called portfolios. We have 6 part-time staff, and we have 6 organizational values. And we went through a long process working with each of our staff members about what things are most important to them. So Rich now holds the portfolio for leadership and legacy for our organization. That's what he was really interested in. And so it's his role to ensure that every project we do, and not just the projects, but the education initiatives, everything else, has some sort of legacy in the city. So whether it's a project he works on or not, he now has both the right and responsibility to take an interest in every single thing our organization does. And every staff meeting, we have a different minister, they're all called ministers holding their portfolios, hence the silly tie and the pipe, give a report that's kind of an audit on our organization. Actually, how are we tracking as far as leadership and legacy goes? So it gives Rich, so Rich is working on one project in particular at the moment, but he's sticking his nose into everything we're doing as an organization. And again, that's just another form of that meaningful engagement. He's not a volunteer, he's our staff member, but we're trying to find ways for people to get as meaningfully involved as possible. And I think that goes for anyone who engages in our projects at all, not just volunteers. So this is a project called the Dance-O-Mat, probably our best known project. It's a dance floor, sprung dance floor with speakers and lights on towers, and a washing machine, a coin-operated washing machine. And under the lid of the washing machine is a headphone jack, and you put a coin in, and the lights and sound come on for half an hour, and you plug in your own device and play your own music. And it's now on Gloucester Street, right next to the Theatre Royal. So if you have some time tonight, go have a look. And in the early days, we worked very closely with Adam from the Body Festival and a whole range of dance groups to activate and populate the Dance-O-Mat. So the Swingtown Rebels dance group, we had all sorts of workshops and social engagements with dance groups. And then new groups started coalescing around the Dance-O-Mat. These guys were around for a good month or two. They called themselves the Superhero Dance Squad. I have no idea who they were. They turned up every Tuesday, Wednesday at 7 p.m. and showed off their funny costumes and their amazing superpowers, and bombarded our social media page. But it's a bit silly, but it's pretty cool. That's a group of people that did not exist. That group came into existence as a response to the space, the project that we created. But at heart, it's this. It's just anyone and everyone who comes along and uses this actually, in a way, unwittingly becomes a volunteer for our organization, becomes hopefully slightly more meaningfully engaged in the city and feeling that there are parts of the city that reflect them, their identity, their desires maybe. And that's probably the biggest one. So this is a photo when the Cricket World Cup was happening in Christchurch. Alongside the Cricket World Cup, we ran a tournament, an all-ages tournament called the International French Cricket World Cup, and we required every participant and audience member to dress up like a French idiot with a mustache and everything. This is just a photo from that event. But I'd say at core, what we're about is providing opportunities for people to live out their values. And going right back to that generosity that came up after the earthquakes, there's a lot of good in people that stays inside because we don't have many ways to express it in our society, in our everyday lives. And so we try just to provide a framework or provide opportunities for people to express those values and put them into some sort of tangible form in the world. Thanks.